is your boy, Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and we're going to be kicking things off today with a game from 1996, the Geneva Grand Prix PCA event. And with the white pieces, we've got Viswanathan Anand, our current world champion, versus, one of the best players ever, Garry Kasparov, with the black pieces. And so we're going to be kicking things off today. Anand comes out swinging with e4. And what does Kasparov play? We're going into an open Sicilian here with d4, knight takes d4. And here with a6, Kasparov signals that he wants to play his patented Najdorf defense. And so Anand plays bishop e3. And this is leading to normally the English attack with f3, although you can transpose to a couple different lines, the Opusensky with bishop e2, for example. Maybe even Fischer-Sozin with bishop c4, although I'm not so crazy about that. But normally f3 is going to be followed next. And so here, Kasparov plays an anti-English line that he really developed back in the 90s. This game was in 96. Kasparov was really playing this line a lot. This knight g4, and basically it just, says to the bishop, what are you going to do, guy? A lot of people actually with white will play bishop c1, and black just goes back. And sometimes you'll see some grandmaster draws like this. But Anand, and this was a 25-minute match. It's kind of the mini-match, rapid knockout format that the PCA was using in this Grand Prix event. And Anand's got white, right? You're playing a mini-match, especially you got to try to win with white. And so he plays bishop g5. Kasparov plays h6. And after g5 and bishop g3, this is kind of the starting point for this line. And so black usually plays bishop g7. White has a lot of options. He can play h3, f3, queen d2 here. Anand goes with kind of the more positionally sound line where he develops a piece, puts the question to the bishop, or to the knight here, rather on g4. And, knight e5 is certainly possible, but Kasparov plays h5. I think this is still the main line today. And so h5, the idea is to support the knight and also threaten h4 soon. And so this anti-English line with the knight g4, I played it a couple times myself, is very interesting, really highly dynamic positions in the middle game. And, it's very different. It's very complicated. And I really like black's position. It looks like black's game is completely ridiculous. But the big benefit for black is that he's got this e5 square for his knight. And that is a very important square, and he's locked that down nicely with the pawn here on g5. So we'll continue. Anand captures the knight, and I think to stop it from going to e5, really. And so now Kasparov goes with bishop takes. Also possible to play pawn takes. Personally, I like bishop takes a little more, though. I think it flows better to not let these pawns get doubled here. And so f3, certainly logical, and now bishop back to d7. In some lines of this anti-English, you will see the bishop go to e6, but I think after having played h5, it just, maybe this is a little bit too loose here with these pawns, possibly an immediate h4. It just feels you're trying too hard. The pawns are too loose. So Kasparov goes bishop back to d7. White just, kind of sidesteps. He tries to take the sting out of a pawn advance by black. And knight c6, so just calm development here. Let me see queen d2, and Kasparov plays knight e5, and this is not so calm. Actually, this is pretty aggressive. So what's the deal with knight e5? The knight is extremely well placed. White can't really kick it out with f4 right now. And it's also threatening to hit the c4 square, where the knight on c4 is an absolute monster. Well, white's critical response would have to be queen takes g5, and this actually loses the queen on the spot. So knight e5 was a pretty nice, very sharp move. And if queen takes g5 here, we have simply bishop h6. And now the queen only has, I guess it's got 3 squares. It can go to h4, g3, or take the pawn on h5. Well, let's make it easy. If he takes on h5, we play check. Discover attack on the queen. That's a queen for a piece. It's a pretty good deal. If queen to g3, we're simply going to play h4. The queen is trapped, and we have the same check. as in the previous example. And if queen h4, just knight to g6. And just it's the same story. There's absolutely no way out for White's queen. I mean, it's completely trapped. So that's a nice move. Knight e5. It certainly seems to work. White can't touch the pawn, and Black is playing very quickly with his pieces in the center and everything, really upping the pressure against White early on. So White decides to castle kingside, and this was probably a good call, though he is kind of castling into an attack. The thing about castling queenside is that this knight c4 move is just so strong. The knight is just devastating there with the half-open c-file. Black's queen will surely go to a5 soon. The bishop pointing at his king. This looks like the opening has gone pretty well. So going queenside, that's a mess. Going kingside, you're still castling into the pawns. But, the thing is, if Black doesn't get a really good position, or at least, if he doesn't get a good position out of the opening, if he's unable to maintain the initiative and maintain his attack, he's going to be in some trouble strategically. Long term, he's got some holes. These pawns can become big weaknesses long term. And also, not to mention, White's knights are pretty well placed in the center. So here, Kasparov plays e6. So he takes care of the problem with the knights. The knights no longer have f5 and d5. Also, the queen is now defending g5. But pushing this pawn to e6 here, it does have a major drawback that it weakens the d6 pawn forever. And so this pawn is going to be very weak. However, if Kasparov is able to play energetically enough here, he's going to be okay. He'll have compensation for the weakness of the d6 pawn. And so Anand starts out with b3. He doesn't want to mess with knight to c4, and I think that's pretty understandable. And so Kasparov now with knight to g6. Basically, just kind of taking real firm control over f4 and also opening the bishop up along this diagonal. And so rook to d1, eyeing some pressure. I think rook fd1 didn't make quite as much sense because this bishop is just hitting that rook, in long term or whatnot. So I think this makes sense to put the rook on the d and maybe the e file later. And so now Kasparov starts spicing things up. There's no surprise there. He wants to open lines against Black's king, or against White's king, rather. And here, White could maybe try to win the d6 pawn, let's say with knight to e2. This is a really sketchy move, though. And allowing Kasparov, nonetheless, allowing your opponent to open up this h-file and this attack here, it's not even that clear you're even going to be able to take d6. Black can actually, similar to tactics in the game, rook to c8. And the problem is White can't take d6 because he loses a piece. He loses a piece, flat out. So it's pretty tough. I mean, it's like, where do you, how do you defend this pressure on the c file so you can take the pawn on d6? It's very difficult. It's not an easy question to answer. Maybe bishop to d4. I mean, maybe that could work, but I'm really not that convinced. Maybe just e5. It's kind of an ugly move to make, but would open some lines. Just kind of on a conceptual basis. I think if Black can maintain counterplay against White's knight here on c3, then Black is going to be okay. He'll have compensation for the weakness of d6. So in the game, Kasparov pushes forward with g4. White decides, I think pretty prudently here, to keep the king side closed. And Kasparov just continues, pushing in the heat here. And, it looks like maybe he wants to establish a focal point on f4. Maybe he wants to push the g-pawn or the h-pawn. Either way, he's trying to fix the pawn structure very ambitiously on the king side. And so White does play knight d2. And so White defending some threats here on the king side. Also, the knight defends the knight on c3. And so White is actually threatening to take the pawn on d6. So Kasparov with h3. He says, hey, man, you want to take the pawn? Do you really want to take the pawn? and weaken your king side this much. This would be very risky. Let's just say if king takes, maybe knight to h4 check, trying to come in. It's just sketchy business. G3, maybe in some lines. I don't know. There's so much stuff hanging over white's head here. And so, I guess, he could have taken on d6, but it was really sketchy. It was pretty dangerous. So Anand, he plays g3, and he tries to blockade the king side. And so he does achieve a blockade, but now black has kind of lasting space advantage and pressure on the white king. And so now Kasparov with rook c8, queen takes d6 doesn't work because the bishop takes c3 or rook takes c3. And so white plays e5. It's a pretty nice move. He is ready to sack a pawn if necessary. First of all, he's trying to shut down the bishop. But if bishop, let's say if pawn takes e5, I think knight to e4. And this d6 square is looking pretty juicy here for white. This is looking nice, like a pretty nice square. And so, I guess Kasparov didn't really feel like allowing that, so he played d5. And so that after e5, this is a big positional victory for white. Even though he didn't get to win the pawn, he does get to shut out black's best piece, the bishop here. He gets to shut it down completely. Also, black does have the two bishops. Black's light square now. It's going to be a lot more difficult to work with these pawns around white's king on this diagonal. So making black push this pawn, a big positional victory for white. So knight to d4, and white's position really does look pretty good here. He's black spent so much time pushing these pawns up here. He spent like 8 moves, and now they're completely blockaded. And so with the knight on d4, let's compare the pieces, right? Knight on d4 to knight to bishop on d7. The knight on d4 is killing it. So I think that white's position looks preferable here. It seems to me. It just straightforward. Black castles seems a little crazy, but I guess if he pushes, we can just take on f5 and take on e5, and white is going to be spicing things up a little bit, but it looks like this is really going to benefit black. He wins a pawn, he opens a position, and especially opening the position, we're going to see really benefits black in a lot of these lines because he's got the pawns just hanging out by white's king. So white has achieved a blockade on these pawns, but if the position opens up, if black can land some pieces on that diagonal, then white is going to be in some trouble. And so we'll see how Kasparov kind of uses that against Anand. Anand plays queen to d3. I think he's just trying to improve his position a little bit. Maybe kind of eye this knight here, and maybe kind of get ready. Maybe trying to set up some tactics on e6, whatnot. And so now Kasparov plays f5. And if he can get away with this move, he's going to have he's starting to turn the tides now. And it seems like he is going to get away with it. Basically the critical move here would be en passant. And so I think, rook takes or queen takes is the only move. You have to defend the knight. And if queen takes, I don't know. I think white still has a pretty good game. Maybe this would have been preferable for Anand. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous to open the position with these pawns right over your king. But also moves like f5 here. And it seems like even though the position is dangerously opening, it's very dangerous. It seems interesting to me. It seems like white at least has a good amount of counterplay. Maybe queen e3. He did. These squares again. I can't say it enough. Those it's very uncomfortable. But I don't know. Maybe okay. Maybe he was worried about knight f3. This kind of tactic. Yikes! This is pretty devastating. If takes, we have rook takes here. Black is going to win a piece. And if he doesn't take, say knight takes. Well, first, if queen takes, we have rook takes c3. So that's going to lose a piece. And second, if rook takes, the e5. Oof, man, this got bad. This got really bad. Probably either bishop c6 or rook takes, followed by bishop c6. The whole thing has gone south. Black is about to be winning. Either with just bishop c6 here, I mean, he's going to win a lot of material. So I think that line, that was a pretty nice sample line that illustrates, kind of the dangers white faces if he does in this position. If he does go with the en passant here, if he does take here, opening up the game, and f5 would be the logical move, and that just gets messed up. I mean, this just gets busted. And if not f5, I mean, I don't know. Black is going to be able to resituate here, and it looks like he's got a nice game. The more open the position becomes, the more his two bishops and his extra threats around white's king are going to be felt. So Anand didn't do it, and he played knight c2. And so he goes for a different plan. He says, okay, you can have all these squares, right? Just take all these squares. All this stuff is yours. And what Anand does is he plays to maybe open the c file and open the d file and open pressure there. And so black just rook f7. He starts getting ready to organize his pieces and bring them towards the queen side. So rook c1, bishop f8. These are good moves. Just reroute the bishop. Maybe one day it'll go to a3, harassing white's rook and strengthening black on the c file. And so white plays c3. I didn't really like this move. I just don't get it. I don't know what this does. It seems like a waste of a move. I guess, bishop b4, but that wasn't really, that didn't really do anything either. So I think c3, I just didn't like it. And so knight e7. So Kasparov, just really changing all of his pieces towards the queen side. And so rook d1, Anand is getting ready to break open the d file with c4. And now knight c6. I think in this position, it was in white's best interest to exchange knights, because what's going to happen here, and we're going to see this become more significant throughout the game, is that white's knights become pretty redundant. Both of his knights would like to be on d4. That's really the only good square for white's knights, for the foreseeable future. And so both knights want to go to d4, but you can only have one knight there at the same time. So this idea of redundant knights, I think just go ahead and take this sucker. Pawn takes, not really a concern. You could either snatch this pawn if you wanted, or probably just c4. And it seems to me that white has a very nice position. Black's bishops just don't have anywhere to go. So I think taking the knight, if knight takes, we just knight to d4. And it seems like this would have been significantly better for white. Instead, Anand played c4 here. Kasparov takes, rook takes. And so now black kind of wants to play b5 to push this guy back. But the problem is moves like knight takes c6, and we're going to feel this pressure on the d file. And this looks very good for white. Rook takes here. White is just dominating. And what else? Knight takes, if he takes here, I believe, maybe knight takes d8. This looks pretty nice. It just seems like, shoot, man, even queen takes. Just with the pressure here on the d file. And white should be winning a pawn here. If rook takes, we just take it. And white's up a pawn. Active rook. So anyway, just a sample variation, playing b5 with all this pin-up pressure here. Probably not the best move for black. And so that's why Kasparov goes queen e8. Also, queen e8 defends this e6 pawn. And so now the problem is, for white, that the position is open like this, is that if he plays knight takes c6 now, he's just helping black put his bishop on this monster diagonal. Knight to d4 is going to run into a bunch of different moves, but mainly the bishop just dominates incredibly. It's got a home on any one of these squares, wherever it wants to go. Say bishop e4. And now, I think we're starting to see that white is probably not going to be doing too well here. I don't think he's having a good time. Black is going to be dominating. So anyway, just a sample position after queen e8. Knight takes c6, no longer nearly as effective. And so he tries queen to d2. So I think trying to take control of the b4 square. Black blasts forward. And so now after rook c1, we have knight to b4. And so knight to b4, it seems like with knight to c3, white had a good plan here. It seemed like he didn't feel his knights were redundant. He could still swap off black's knight. Now, it's a good question. After rook to c7, white played a3, and he puts the question on the knight, where does the knight go? If he goes here, you're busted, right? This is horrible. This would not be good, or whatever. I mean, knight takes, and it's just very bad for black. Knight to d5, and knight to c6. Maybe he could take it, takes, and queen to d8, or maybe if you don't want to lose the a3 pawn or leave it loose, b4 here even. And in this position, it looks like black is certainly better. He's got a lot of very annoying mating threats that are going to happen on this diagonal, but it seems like white can he can probably be okay. He's got good control over the opening files. But unfortunately for Anand here, it really did seem like the knight has nowhere to go, and he's got to trade it off. But unfortunately, Kasparov came up with a very nice idea after rook c7, very sneaky plan. And now we just have a lingering checkmate just hanging over white's head. And so he's got to defend it with the queen. Really no way to block this diagonal. So he's got to defend it with the queen for now. And so now Kasparov plays knight to d3. And this is what made this guy so good. This is what made him a world champion for 20 years. A dominating world champion. Is that once he got the initiative, he's played very patiently all game. He finally gets a chance of an attack, and he just lets it loose. And literally every move is now worth its weight in gold. So knight to d3, really nice move. White's queen can't move. It cannot leave the g2 square. Otherwise he gets mated on the spot. So this knight starts getting crazy. After rook c2, Kasparov, he could maybe try to take this pawn or something like that. I don't know. He just plays b4. He blasts forward. He tries to get all of his pieces into the game. And so now white goes knight to a2. He didn't want to let the bishop get developed. It makes sense. I mean, either knight takes is okay, or bishop takes here even. This is a mess. I mean, this is even just knight takes. Either way, and with this open now, black is he's going to have a lot of pressure. So Anand tries knight a2. He tries to defend. And so now black plays knight c5. And this was a really nice move. So at first time I saw it, I thought it was a little crazy. Let's take a look at the candidate moves for white. What if he takes the pawn? Knight e4. If queen to e2 with knight c3. And that's going to be winning an exchange and just a really nice position. So rook takes, pressure. If something like bishop d2, maybe we're going to take on b4 here. And let's look at the resulting position after that mess. Black is up in exchange. White's only got one extra pawn. And the long-term mate threats on the diagonal still exist. So let's take a look at some other ideas. What if pawn takes? Now I'm thinking Kasparov was planning knight e4, queen e2, rook takes c2. And so now we're going to see just how dangerous these threats are. If knight takes, a move like bishop b5 is devastating. It kicks the queen off of this square, and wherever the queen goes, we can just play something, whatever kind of threat we can think of. Probably knight g5. Oof, man, that looks nice. Just threatening mate, threatening knight f3. That's toast. And so going back here, that was if knight takes. If queen takes, a move that I was thinking about was rook to h7. And this is just pretty twisted. It just sets up this threat of knight takes g3, followed by h2 check. Just a very basic threat. And I haven't really been able to find a good defense for white. It's absolutely just sick. I mean, white's up just a pawn here. Material's pretty equal, but this threat is just so nasty on the diagonal. And now black's just threatening to take. And whatever, if white doesn't take it, he would just go back with the knight and push g3. And he's breaking through. And let's say if bishop here, we have some similar ideas that just opening up the mate and it's going to win some material for white. What else? Let's say knight e2, trying to go after this guy. And now it's maybe not quite so easy. Black's got to be a little creative. If knight takes, he's okay. But I think maybe bishop b5, eyeing the knight. And, let's say knight here. And it just, the guy's, he's all tied up. Maybe knight g5. Maybe it's a good time for moves like knight g5. I just got to think that black, maybe he gets his pawn back and it's just, huge edge here. A huge edge for black. So let's go back to the game. And that was just, I wanted to show some sample lines of what's up with knight to c5. And, really, a really nice move. And so now, Anand played queen e2, so I think he's trying to minimize the effect of knight to e4. And so now, Kasparov just snatches a pawn. White plays b4, and so it looks like maybe black has miscalculated. I want to say again, this is a 25-minute game. So this has been pretty incredible play for 25 minutes. And I think the guys are probably getting a little bit low on time now. So playing b4, it seems like black's miscalculated. And his rook on c7 is a loose piece. However, after bishop a4, we're going to see that it's not so easy for white. First of all, if rook takes, I think we're just going to play bishop takes d1. And coming out of the resulting mess, black is going to have two rooks for 3 pieces. Wait a second, that didn't even make sense. After bishop takes d1, if he takes here, this is checkmate. He's still got the checkmate open. All right, so that should forgot about the checkmate. So yeah, just looking in this position after bishop to a4 in the game, rook takes just runs into bishop takes, and there's a checkmate. Black's going to be up a lot of material. The move in the game, pawn takes, led to bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and man, this is a tough position. I mean, if white, you don't really, 2 knights versus a rook is pretty much. It's not a very good material balance, especially the knights here don't have any good squares. If a knight could get to d6, it'd be different, but that's a long way away. So a move like knight d4, or just rook d8, rook d7, and this really just illustrates the problem with white's game here. This constant mate threat, he can't do anything. Like if knight takes, just play rook takes, and white's entire position falls apart. So Anand, he trades. Rook takes. So white has achieved in some good trades here. And knight to e1. And so material balance, we have a rook and 2 pawns for 2 knights. But the knights are purely defensive. They're not doing anything aggressive. And so now white has defended the checkmate with his knight. Black plays a nice move, rook b5. He didn't have an entry point on the c file, so it didn't really make any sense to double on the c file. All of these squares are covered. And so for that, he plays rook to b5, and now he's getting in. And he's going to be using the dangerous passed pawn as well as controlling the second. It's a nice threat. So white, he finally can activate his queen. Now the mate is defended. See rook to b2. Kasparov is just crazy. He doesn't even care. He's just going for mate here. And so after queen e6, Anand plays his cards. I mean, he's got to get some counterplay. We see rook or queen to a7 here. That's right. Very sneaky by Kasparov. If rook g2, the obvious threat, I think king f1, and it's not really that easy. This might even be a draw because white, if first of all, you can't move off the 8th rank with your queen. We have queen g6 check, rook d8 is mate. And so second of all, if you can't move the queen off, I mean, it's kind of like, what do you do? Rook takes, and it looks like white, with a series of checks here, is probably going to be able to hold this. I don't really see, it looks pretty tough. I mean, I think white is maybe going to be able to hold this position. It's going to be difficult. Difficult for black. So instead, in this position, instead of rook to g2, he played queen a7. And so this was just very nice, very subtle check. And so white can't go to f1. He gets mated on the spot. So he goes king to h1. And now the point of Kasparov's plan, why he let Anand come in and take the pawn on e6, he sacks the rook. And it's a temporary sack. We have a forced series of checks here. White is helpless, and black's going to get his money back here. He takes the rook on d1. And so he only got one pawn for the rook, but that was a pretty important pawn there on h2. Now black has two very advanced passed pawns. And, white is in a lot of trouble. White's main problem is that he can't draw. He played king f1 here. I mean, just an example of check. Another check. And I think something, the queen is covering d6. And I think something like this, maybe, like queen h4 and probably king d7. White's out of checks. Black has two passed pawns. He's threatening the knight. It's the king here. And, black's got to be winning here. I mean, maybe just queen d5, just to consolidate the position. Still eyeing these squares, defending. I mean, black's got to be winning here. And so white doesn't have a perpetual check in this position. So really just very well calculated. And so white, he tries to defend. Black, he just comes back. Let's make it easy on ourselves. Trade queens. These two passed pawns and the rook will be more than enough to win. White tries to snatch a pawn. And not just snatching a pawn, he's also threatening e6. And black just plays h2. E6, not that much of a threat, really. He can just make another queen. And, just an example here. If e6, just make a queen. And there's probably some kind of checkmate coming soon. So, after in the game, white played check. He tries to throw a couple more checks. And in this position, white resigned. He can't stop the pawn from promoting. And he's run out of checks. So what a psycho game. I mean, this was only a 25-minute game. Such an incredible amount of strategy and tactics. Kasparov very patient, and I think once Anand, if we go way back to the middle game, I think once Anand missed his opportunity to exchange knights. Let's go right here. I think with c3, Anand started losing control of the position. When he played c3 in this position, he should have just played rook d1 and c4 if that's what he wanted to do. And I think c3 was weird. It was like he kind of wanted to defend passively and not open the position with c4, and then he realized black is just going to be able to open it anyway someday. And so with knight c6 here, he should have traded off one of these knights in a better circumstance, and now to play knight d4. I think this is pretty clear, and maybe he just plays for the draw, honestly. Maybe like bishop d7, maybe just b4 even. And, maybe he just tries to close down the queen side instead of anything else. So anyway, a really fantastic game. Those Kasparov and Anand battles in the 90s were pretty nice. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.